It begins like any other morning. Markets open, headlines buzz. But something is wrong. The US dollar, once the most trusted currency in the world, has collapsed. Not gradually, not in a slow decline, but all at once. Banks freeze, ATMs stop working, and the world panics. But what would really happen if the US dollar collapsed overnight? First, let's understand what that means. The US dollar isn't just America's currency. It's the world's primary reserve currency. It's what most international trade is priced in. Oil, gold, global debt, nearly all of it flows through the dollar. So if the dollar were to suddenly lose all value, the consequences would not stop at US borders. They would be instant, global, and devastating. In the United States, the effect would be immediate and brutal. Grocery stores would be stripped bare within hours. Gas stations would see miles-long lines until supplies ran out. Electronic payments would become meaningless, and cash would turn into worthless paper. Overnight, inflation wouldn't rise. It would explode. Prices wouldn't just double. They could increase tenfold in a single day. A loaf of bread that cost 3 lire yesterday might cost $30 by morning. Why? Because confidence, the invisible glue that holds a currency together, would be gone. And without confidence, nothing in the economy works. Interest rates would skyrocket. Mortgages would become impossible to pay. Credit cards would be declined across the board. Every debt, every loan, every contract priced in dollars would collapse. And then there's Wall Street. Stock markets would likely crash the moment trading opened, if they opened at all. Panic would grip investors worldwide. Retirement accounts would vanish. 401ks and savings would become inaccessible or valueless. The Federal Reserve might try to intervene, but with the currency itself collapsing, it would be like trying to put out a wildfire with a garden hose. Governments around the world would scramble to protect their economies. Since most hold US Treasury bonds as reserves, their national wealth would suddenly become toxic. Countries like China, Japan, and oil-rich Gulf states, who hold trillions in US debt, would see those assets evaporate. International trade would grind to a halt as no one could agree on what anything is worth anymore. But not all currencies would fall with the dollar. Some, like the euro, yuan, or a digital currency, might rise to fill the void. In the chaos, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies could skyrocket, fueled by desperation and speculation. Others might revert to gold, silver, or even bartering for goods and services. Inside the US, a black market would emerge quickly. People would trade food, fuel, medicine, anything with real value. Law enforcement, stretched thin, would struggle to control looting and riots. Some states might even consider issuing their own temporary currencies to stabilize local economies. Trust in the federal government could break down entirely, leading to political upheaval or worse. So how could the dollar collapse so suddenly? It's rare, but not impossible. A perfect storm, massive national debt, hyperinflation, total loss of investor confidence, geopolitical sabotage, or a severe cyber attack on banking infrastructure could trigger such an event. Once enough people believe the dollar has no value, that belief becomes reality, and the fall would be unstoppable. But history offers warnings. We've seen similar collapses before in Weimar Germany, in Zimbabwe, in Venezuela. In each case, once the tipping point was reached, it didn't take months or weeks. It took days, sometimes hours. If it happened in the US, the difference is scale. This isn't just one country's problem. It's the entire global financial system unraveling. Airlines grounded, global supply chains frozen, stock markets halted, and a once stable world thrown into uncertainty. The fallout wouldn't just be economic, it would be psychological. A generation raised on the belief that the dollar is forever would face a new reality, one where trust in institutions, in money, and even in the future itself would need to be rebuilt from scratch. Could we recover? Eventually, but it would take years, possibly decades. New systems would need to rise, new currencies, new rules, and new global alliances would form. The world would change, possibly forever. So the next time you pull out a dollar bill, remember, it's not the paper that matters, it's the faith behind it. And if that faith ever disappears, the consequences could be more far-reaching than any war, pandemic, or natural disaster we've ever seen. Because when money dies, everything else goes with it.